My name is Sean Thomas, and I'm the author of Be More Today, a 40-day guide to a better version of you. As doctor of physical therapy, I've seen thousands of people do great things. They came to me with ailments, physical ailments, pain, issues, and they got through them, all because they decided in their mind they were going to do it. And I guarantee you, if you just trust the process and be persistent, you too can be the best version of you. Have you ever been out and about, traveling, running, and you're trying to figure out how to hold everything on you? Phone, keys, wallet, lip gloss, lip balm, your gels. I gotta tell you, the best belt you can ever use is by one company, and that company's name is Spy Belt. Spy Belt makes an innovative running belt that solves the pocketless problem. Whatever small personal items, SPI, need to be toted during physical activity, you will hold it in your very discreet, expandable running belt with comfort and ease over any distance. And those are the words taken right from Kim Overton, CEO and founder and inventor of the Spy Belt product. Kim's a great friend of mine. She sponsors the Be More Today show, and we support all things that Kim does. So, if you're looking for the best belt on the market, visit spybelt.com today and check out all their amazing belts. I wear them for all my runs, and I think they are the best. If you go on today and use the code BeMoreToday, you can get 10% off any of their merchandise. So, check out spybelt.com, and let's continue to be more today with Spy Belt. Run smart, run free, run with Spy Belt. Don't let aches and pains hold you back from living your life. At JAG Physical Therapy, our experienced clinicians create a personalized treatment plan that fits each and every patient's needs uniquely. Whether it's recovering from an injury or enhancing your performance, we've got you covered. With over 150 locations throughout New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, there is sure to be a JAG Physical Therapy location near you. Visit jagpt.com and book an appointment today to get back the life you love. That's jagpt.com. jagpt.com.
Welcome to the Be More Today show. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our show today. Now, let's hear it from our host, Dr. Sean Thomas.
What's going on, folks? Your boy again, Dr. Sean Thomas, back in the building with the Be More Today show. We are back in the building, folks, and we are here now in the month of May. Happy May to everyone. The flowers are out, and I'm so excited that the weather has finally changed, at least here in New York. We're here at the Be More Today show now in our 6th season, folks. Season number 6 is here, and it's been great this year. We are trying to be more alive in 2025. We've been doing that from day one, from me plunging into the cold waters in Coney Island to now here in May with the nice, great weather. We've been doing it. We've been being more. And again, from my book, Be More Today, our first book, my second book, Project More, which is out now and it continues to do great. The book is just so great right now, folks. There are people just joining the challenge with us and being in the book process. And from all across the country, the books continue to be out there. So go out there and BeMoreToday.com and check out the book. You will not be disappointed. It is a great tool to be more alive in 2025. And if you already know, my Steps for Greatness Challenge was amazing for our first spring season for this year with our teen challenges, 172 people who are out there getting their steps in across the country. Our next challenge opens up in June, but begins July 1st. So stay tuned for that. And as always, if you want to follow us, Be More Today is on Instagram and Facebook, BeMoreToday.show, BeMoreToday.pt, and your boy here, Dr. Sean Thomas. The show is now heard in 91 countries, over 72,000 downloads. Again, thanks to your love and support, this show continues to grow. And I am just grateful to be your host for this show every single week. Our sponsors, Spy Belt, JAG Physical Therapy, and our monthly patrons, I salute you as always. It never goes unnoticed. So thank you so much for your love and support, as always. Our quote for today is simple, as always. Start writing, no matter what. The water does not flow until the faucet is turned on, by Louis L'Amour. Now, folks, this year, I wrote my second book, had my second book come out, and I've talked a little bit about the story of how this book came to fruition. The first book was fairly easy. You know, when you're motivated to write certain things, you put things out there, and You're just flowing with information and with passion, and it's easy, it's seamless. But writing the second book was tough. And the person I had for my second and my first book is someone who helped me in the process, someone who has been a pillar of encouragement to me in times when the writing process seemed like it was too daunting, or even when it seemed like there weren't enough words on the paper to make a book, or when there seemed like there were too many words on the pages and the book had to be condensed. This person helped me sift through my ideas, sift through my wants, even my needs for this book, and really helped me to hone in to how Project More became Project More, and how Be More today, a 40 Guys to Better Version of You, also became that. She is a pioneer when it comes to writing, and her name is Stephanie Palmer. Now, Stephanie Palmer, folks, those who don't know, is a powerhouse of purpose and perseverance. With over a decade in the editing and entrepreneurial space and a lifelong love for writing, she has poured her heart into helping others realize their dreams, using her organizational brilliance and creative vision to elevate voices and build empires. She's been writing since she was young, always captivated by the rhythm of language. A spoken word artist and lover of poetry, Stephanie is deeply fascinated by the healing and expressive power of words. Through writer's therapy, she goes behind the scenes with authors to help them develop and edit their stories, guiding them to use their words as a path to healing, clarity, and transformation. Now, after developing a successful company, she's officially branching out on her own with Zeal Literary Press, where the passion for writing fuels purpose and helps others boldly share their stories. With a gift for structure and strategy, Stephanie simplifies the publishing process, making it easier for authors to go from idea to finished book with clarity, confidence, and creative flow. Stay tuned. This next chapter is just the beginning. Her calling extends beyond the business world. As an executive life coach, she pours into others, guiding them to walk confidently in their purpose and make decisions aligned with their highest potential. Her service on the board of directors for Expectant Heart Pregnancy Resource Center reflects her deep commitment to uplifting families and supporting them through life's challenges. Above all, Stephanie is a mother, a force of love and strength to her children. She released her first book in 2018 and has continued to create impactful stories ever since, helping others share their own narratives and find their voice. She's a four-time author, currently working on several new projects, including Visionistas, a collaborative book for women who think outside the box. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, pets included, please welcome to the stage the amazing, the captivating, and the intelligent Stephanie Palmer. Stephanie, what is going on?
Yeah, well, first, I just want to say thank you so much, Sean, for having me. I greatly appreciate the opportunity. It's weird hearing about yourself, but yeah, that is it. Like, I'm loving all things writing. I'm so excited that we were able to get your book done. That is a whole book within itself. And I'm just grateful for the opportunity to be here.
I appreciate you. Listen, we got to just talk about the book process because, as you know, and I kind of told the story on the show before, I wanted to write the second book, and I came to you and said, Stephanie, you were great with the first book. I appreciate you so much. I want to write the second book. And you said, great, no problem. Let's get this thing done. We had a whole timeline for this thing, and I was super optimistic. I said, yeah, we'll start it in this month, and we'll be done in 2 months, and it'd be great. And life just happened. From being busy on my end, you being busy on your end, but more busy on my end. This book that I thought was going to take like 2 months ended up being a year-long process for really get this thing done. And even until the last day, we had the book launch. I know you weren't able to be there, but as you know, and that people who are listening may not know, we ordered the books. We had a book launch on a certain day, and the books were not there. The books were not ready. And we were about to have this whole launch. We had DJ, we had people there coming. Food was already ordered, coming. The space was already ready to go. And all we were missing were the books. And I called you. I remember calling you and being like, hey, so, and I know maybe you heard it in my voice, maybe you didn't, but I was super nervous. My wife, is usually not nervous, was very, very calm. And I was the one who was like, where's the faith? Where's the faith? I don't know if I believe that books are going to show up, because we did all these things. I started to doubt myself. And you got on the phone and you just gave me so much encouragement. You gave me so much calmness. And you were like, yeah, the books are going to come. But if they don't come, this is going to be your plan B. And it's going to be amazing regardless of whatever happens. But they're going to come. So just, be ready for the books to come. And I remember the calmness in talking to you about that. And literally, as we waited, the book launch party started at 8 o'clock, and the book showed up around 5:30 in the afternoon, 2.5 hours before the actual thing. So everything worked out. And I was just thankful that you literally were with me from the beginning of the process of just having the thought of having a second book to the literal ending of the process where I was like, are the books even going to be here? You were there for the entire process. So I just want to say thank you and salute you and just let you know that this is really a gift that you have. I know you have experience in poetry and in writing and all these different things, but you also have just a gift for really ushering people through the process. And I was happy to be ushered through the process of a second book. The first book was fun, but this second book was really a journey of faith and a project to really see, okay, well, do I really believe that what I'm putting out there is what I actually put into my life? Do I actually practice those same things? And I had a chance to experience all those things. I just want to say thank you, Stephanie, because I really, really appreciate you and all you've done for me with my second book project more.
Absolutely. You are so welcome. And yes, I even was going back through our text thread of all the things. And when I say that I was speaking and professing over all of it the entire time, it really just lets you know that you have to have faith in everything that you do, especially when it comes to even yourself, but even through writing a book, faith has to be a part of the process.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So Steph, let's talk. I mean, I know that you have so many things that you've been doing, and I'm not a writer, right? I'm a physical therapist. We talked about this before. I'm not a writer, but now I'm an author of 2 books, and you've written 4 books, but you also have a history of loving writing and having a passion for writing and for editing. First of all, how did you get into this in the first place? Because this is not something that most people, are into, because it's hard. It's hard going through and editing and changing and sifting through and cleaning up certain things, but you have a passion and a knack for it. So first of all, how did that even start in the first place for you?
So for me, it started back in I would say high school. Now, I used to write poems, and they were love poems, and I didn't have a clue what love was, but I just needed I knew I needed to express my feelings where it would be received.
Yeah.
So whether that be, because you couldn't, I mean, dating or whatever you would consider it, they may not really understand your feelings or emotions, parents, siblings, any of that. So I was able to put it on paper and be able to just like process it and understand it. I wrote poems for, my from my grandmother to my little brother to anything and everything, just correlated back to writing. I've loved it ever since I learned to read. I was always enamored by books, just the pictures. But then when I grasped the meaning and the concept of words, I was locked in. I would sit
Mm,
on the couch for hours reading. I would just get lost in books. One of my most favorite memories that I have with my mom is her, like, we would always go to, like, we would go shopping, and the process would, we go whatever store she wanted to go to, and it was always a routine where we would go by Olive Garden before we left so we could get a cheesecake. And
nice.
then we left from the cheesecake, getting the cheesecake, then we would go to like Barnes and Noble.
Mm,
And she would go in her section, and then I would go in mine. And I would just, I'd get like 2 or 3 books each time we went. And it became my thing. It was
mm,
our thing. So that's where it ultimately started. And it's really funny, even when I worked previously, the business was created for me. It was mine before she passed. That's what she had shared. She was like, this business was created for you. You were
mm,
born to write.
mm. Wow. Wow, that's powerful. You were born to write. And listen, the quote from today we talked about is start writing no matter what. The water does not flow until the faucet is turned on. And for me, the first book, I don't even know how I started writing a book because, again, it's not even what I do. But I had so many thoughts. I had so many thoughts I wanted to share with the world, and I was verbally sharing this with people, my athletes, my patients, my church friends, whatever else, my family. But really wanted to have it somewhere where it could just be concise. And this podcast actually became a platform that sparked. Well, I guess the book sparked the podcast for the first time because the book came first. And then the podcast sparked this second book. So, it's so funny how things can kind of shift from one thing to another, but sifting through those ideas was tough for me. And having, like you said, writer's therapy, what you do, really was helpful for me to wean through my ideas, to see what I wanted to really share, to figure out what I really want the book to be. Because I had all these ideas about, yeah, I want to do this and that, and I'm sure people have the same thoughts, right? All these different grandiose thoughts of what they want to write and how they want to do it. But writer's therapy for me was very helpful in kind of weaning down those thoughts and just being more organized. Talk to the listeners about what writer's therapy is and how you started it and how it's been so helpful for others as well.
Absolutely. So again, going back, I started originally, it was just editing. That was the whole concept. And I know I didn't do ghostwriting when it came to your book because you did have a lot of the content created. But typically for most authors and those who are in that space where they don't know what they're going to write, they don't know what they want to say or how to go about doing it, I actually walk them through the very beginning of the process to the end. So
Mm,
we create the outline and do all of the things, but it really breaks down the process each and every time, because no one knows, you like the faucet component. Nobody, you've got to turn it on, you've got to start somewhere. I always tell people to go back to fifth grade English, where
mm,
you had to write an outline, a how-to paper of how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and be so thorough and so detailed and descriptive in your writing so that you can have the reader like sit from the writer's point, but then
mm-hmm.
also things from the reader's perspective. So it just breaks down the process. I get to get the outline. From the outline, I learned what the vision and the purpose of the book is, and what the whole objective and the goal that each individual has. And then I'm able to take that, break it down, and then we get to have the sessions to where I get to ask the questions and the author just gets to talk and communicate. A lot of times, like you mentioned earlier that you said you're not a writer, which I do not agree with. You are a writer. You are a writer because you have to be a writer to become an author, but a lot of people are not born writers.
Mm,
And so when they see their work from the language on paper, they're able to see it.
yeah.
And then you begin that process. So you're able to take that and dissect it to create the content.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And it's fine. I say the same thing about running marathons. Like, I'm not a marathoner, but I've run like 9 marathons. So clearly I'm a marathoner. But yeah,
Yes.
you're right. It does come down to being in that space and showcasing and seeing the words. It's funny because even reading my book, this last time when we had our challenge, we were all reading the book together, like a book club. I'm reading it and I'm like, yo, this book is nice. Like it's a good, I actually like the book. But when you're writing these certain things, it's just different when you're putting things on the paper. So it feels different now in the experience of a reader reading the book and actually doing the challenges and actually doing the workouts. And I'm getting the experience that I had hoped I would get as the writer. And it's beautiful to see because now I'm like, you know what? This actually is exactly what I wanted it to be. And I really give kudos to you, Stephanie, because the thought process of what I wanted and what we actually put out there, it came a long way. It came a long way. And I think you have a real knack for helping people develop their visions, to see the fine tuning, the small details, and bringing the words to life. I mean, there were so many things that I'm looking at. I'm like, yeah, I'm glad we took that out. I'm glad we took that out because it was too wordy, and just looking at how the finished product is, it's just amazing looking at the process. And I think I enjoy the process because as a therapist, one of the things that I love seeing is people trusting the process, going through whatever they have to go through and say, you know what, a little bit more this day, a little bit more that day, and seeing the growth, seeing the progressions. It's the same with writing. You see so many changes in the editing, and it's hard. It's hard in the editing. And I'll tell you, as someone who's been working with you, there were sometimes you set me things that I was like, oh, I have to go back and change this again. This is so annoying. But that process of going through and editing and shifting and changing and seeing things differently and you seeing things that I didn't see, all of that makes the beauty that happens in the end. So, I always say anybody can be an author. If I can be an author, anybody can be an author. And I think you've done a great job of making people feel comfortable in that same regard that they too can be authors. So again, kudos to you for that.
you so much. I greatly, greatly appreciate that. And like I said, I even appreciate clients and being able to work alongside authors like yourself because you trusted the process, because I mean, we went in, we had the conversations, I mean, I have the text thread to prove it.
Mm-hmm.
That we were going, back and forth, and for a lot of people, they don't like to share their stories, and I still haven't been able to. I mean, you've shared more, but again, I still want more. So, hey, if book number three is in fruition, I just want to keep pulling things out of you, because each time that we would have a conversation, or each time I would get edits back, I learned more about you. And that's ultimately what the ultimate goal
Mm.
is I want to be able to know who I'm working with, to know their story, to be able to draw that out of them. I think it was one of there's an embarrassing story, I guess, in your first book about your daughter, and that's something that's always going to be in print.
Yeah, I
And
know. Yeah.
but it's like, so I'm always going to see you and think of that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's just fun. Even this last story, when you talked about, the writing, the bike component, and the story that she's going to be able to share. So it's even that legacy component. So I'm just grateful that you were a part of you're a chapter in my book, and I am
Mm,
in yours as well.
that's deep. Listen, talk to us a little bit about Zeal Literacy Press and the passion for writing and the fuel that comes with that.
Okay, so well, I will tell you the name that I can like the name came to me as I was going through, I was changing my password, and I always use my kids' names for whatever reason. I just use their first letters because I'm like, it is what it is. Like, that's just, as a mom, that's how I remember it.
Hmm.
And I had written it out from the youngest or the oldest to the youngest. So it was Laez is how it's spelled. And the Holy Spirit said, you need to turn that around. And
Mm,
I didn't even know what he was talking. Like, I was like, what? And as I'm writing the password, because I got to write it down so I remember it, I
mm,
looked down and then I switched the letters, and it's spelled zeal. And the Holy Spirit said, I need you to get the zeal back for life.
wow.
And that stuck with me. I had no idea that if he was, imparting, the name of what the company would be, but ultimately that's the zeal, the definition of zeal is passion. And the biggest passion that I have in life is not only, my children, it's writing. Those are my passions, between my babies and books.
Mm,
Has been my passion. So that is where that was birthed. And like I said, I'm just grateful because I know I'm as passionate about other people's books, and I want them to get passionate about sharing their stories too.
wow. The fact that that is a combination of your kids' names is dope. And the fact that, yes, it is talking about zeal is even more amazing. It's funny how these things, small like companies come together and the words for them. I was reading somewhere about people trying to figure out how to call or what to name certain companies, and people have used all kinds of different names for different things, and some have been great, some have been so crazy. But thinking about Zeal and even Be More today, there's so much power and story behind those names, right? That really make it so impactful. And for you, it brings it home. You mentioned the Holy Spirit, push you in that regard. And I believe also that for me, this Be More Today journey has been really a journey of God showing me how to share what I have instilled in my heart when it comes to health, fitness, whatever else with the world. And I will say, in both regards, Steph, they're untraditional, right? I think a lot of people think, well, if you want to share what God shares with you, it has to be at church. It has to be this way. It has to be, and there have been so many instances when, at least in my life, you can share on your regard if you want to too. God has showed me, you know what? No, no, no. I want you to share it this way. I want you to share it in a non-conventional way where it can be understood. And it's funny because even with this book, I've had people who, and they don't know my background. They don't know if I'm Christian or not. I mean, I say it on the show, so they probably know. But I've gotten some people who responded to the book being like, oh, your book has a lot of like church references to it, and it's almost like a devotional style book. And I'm like, yeah, that wasn't really the point, but maybe it was the point. And I'm thinking to myself, there's so many messages that I've shared in terms of faith and love and hope, not just in terms of what we can do physically, but what also we can do as a community. that I poured into the book that I do feel like it is a testament to what we as Christians can do on a bigger basis. And that wasn't the intention. It was never the intention to do that. But I do think that was instilled in me somehow that's what God wanted me to pour out into it. And it's been so well received that I think if it had been done in a traditional manner, it probably might not have been so well received. So, I'm curious for you. You talk about zeal and what you're gonna be doing now with this business venture. Do you feel like, God is guiding you towards a certain direction, towards sharing stories or helping others to share stories in some regards, or what really is inspiring you and pushing you now to believe that this is where He wants you to be and what He wants you to do?
Well, I know again, it goes back to the love of writing, the love of people being able to share their stories. For me, it's generational, it's legacy. I think, I mean, you look at the greatest book of all time, the Bible. It was because people's stories were referenced. They took time and put it together and put it out there. And I think each of us, have our own books of the Bible and
Mm,
how we live our lives and how we show up and the lessons and the stories that we have, the lessons that we've learned to be able to, it is our fiduciary responsibility to share our testimony with others so that they
mm,
know that they're not alone in their experiences. So it definitely is, the mission and the marketplace as it relates to faith. I am a Christian as well. I wholeheartedly believe that God is wanting us to put our stories out there to help others because I mean just like the people, you have patients that are purchasing your book and everything. You don't know what they're going, you don't know what they're experiencing in their home lives.
yeah.
You don't know what message that they could read that's going to shift the trajectory of their life. I do know even as I'm writing it because ultimately what goes in you goes through you. And so by me even working on the book and us having to go back and forth and everything else, it really had me solidify what more looked like for me.
Mm,
What do I need more of in my life? And that we are the greatest projects that we will ever have.
mm,
It's one thing to, say, well, so and so needs to work on themselves, but how are you working on you? How are you getting better? So I just look at even had I not, published your book when you did, like I know God's timing is everything and how it all orchestrated for me to sit back and say, okay, now I've digested this content. So now that I've digested it, how am I going to implement it?
mm,
So kudos to you as well, because again, it has gotten me to look at myself of how I want to become more. Like
yeah.
I want to do more, I want to write more books. I want to help more people. I want to have more faith. I want to just the concept of more is amazing.
Oh, I appreciate that so much, Steph. And it's crazy. I wrote my two books, right? And you mentioned the third book, and it's funny. I just mentioned this to somebody the other day, and it was very much in passing. It was there's no email coming after the show about a third book that I want to write yet. But I did say to myself, if I did write a third book, it would be uh like a devotional Christian book. It would be a straight on faith based, let's get into the word, 40 days of whatever, inspirational, whoever is for whatever. And it would definitely be that. And I only say it because I've seen how the book has shifted from the first book to the second book, and my sharing has shifted. As you mentioned, the transparency is what you want to see in stories. And for me, as someone who has not always been transparent, I think for me, I do these podcasts and I write these books because it gives me a chance to showcase that. And it forces me into a space where I'm vulnerable enough to do that. Now, you might not get that with me one on one. You might not get that with me in group settings, but you'll definitely get that on the show. You'll definitely get that, in a book. And then we can talk about it because now you know what's going on. We can have conversations about it. But it has been a very uh more comfortable now, but at first uncomfortable space for me to be able to share those things without, and not even like, oh, what are you gonna think about? But it's more just like, I don't want to share that with you because I don't know you, and I don't know who you are. But for me not to share my issues with taking my board exam, for me not to share my issues in terms of my fitness goals and hitting them or not hitting them. And for me not to share all the things that I've learned in terms of how we can be physically better, like you said, it would be a disservice not to share that with the world so that someone else can go out there and be better and they can be more themselves. So I've seen it in that regard, and it's been easier to share. It's been easier to talk about things that I've struggled with, and whether it's physical ailments or what have you. I'm in a space now where I like doing it. And I think, again, thanks to your writer's therapy and to the structure you've given, you've allowed me to do that in a way and in a structure that I feel confident in doing. And like you said, there are things that I've said that I've scratched the surface with, but I do feel like I can share more now and even be more transparent, be even more vulnerable, writing that thing down or on paper, or even like dictating it and having it transcribed, knowing that it will come out on the other end, uh, receivable in a way that will be received well by others. So again, I appreciate you for that. And I think anyone can be a writer. Really, I tell everyone you can be a writer. If I can be a writer, you can be a writer. And I know people have come to you and say, I can't write. So when people come to you and say, look, I can't be a writer, I don't know where to start, or people who are listening who want to write a book, right? And they come to you, what are some of the things you share with them about trying to get into this process and trying to be an author like you and I are?
Absolutely. So the biggest thing is going to be the overall goal of how they want to utilize the book. So whether it's going to be just an heirloom or a legacy piece of just wanting to share their story, are they going to use it to kind of leverage their business? And kind of like how, you did, you could do the hybrid approach of best of both worlds. You can share a little bit about your story, but then you can also tie in like your business, and then it's beneficial, in all regards. So just really kind of seeing what the overall purpose that they want to have the book, like what they want to write about. Some have started out, well, it's just going to be a self-help book, and then the self-help book turned into a memoir, and then here we are, and you're sharing your entire story. So it really just depends on what that overall mission and that goal is. I do tell like entrepreneurs or anybody who's in business that they need to have something that's geared toward their business. Now, if they want to write, if they want to, do a memoir or an autobiography, by all means, share your story. But if it's something that, whether they're in the space of, like a hairstylist, or, we've had a daycare owner who just kind of shared, bits and pieces of her story. It just really depends on where you want to go, what you want to do with the book. If you're going to utilize it for ministry, being able to, expound and do research and learn more about the Bible stories and how it correlates in your own life. And there's so many different directions you can go, but once you get that purpose, then you're able to backtrack and course correct along the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's strong, and I agree with that. And I think anyone can be an author. Everyone has a story, like you said, that needs to be heard. Especially people who think they don't have a story to share. Usually, they have a story to share. So, yeah, I agree with you that, and I would encourage anyone who's listening to connect with Stephanie. We'll give you the context at the end of the show. But I think you're a great resource, and you make the writing process so easy. Everyone always asks you, so when do you have time to write a book? Like, when do you find time to do that? And I was thinking back on the process for the first and the second one. The first one was kind of seamless because I was so into it. I was like, this is happening. And I think we actually did it like in a month's time or like 6 weeks. It was
It's
seamless.
very
It was like,
short. Yeah.
yeah, it was like, okay, we're on this thing. But I also came to it with a lot of the content already written, and there was like structure to it. The second one, which again was a podcast, and for those who listen to the show, we did a whole podcast on this book called Project 40. And Project 40 actually became Project More. It was 40 days just talking about what happens after Be More Today. So we transcribed those things, and I sent it to your team, and you guys transcribed it and took out all my ums and ahs and oohs and theys, and because there were so many of those. And once we got down to the crux of what was happening in every chapter, we had to really structure it. My wife was so helpful as well, so I appreciate her. But together, you two really helped me to sift through these ideas and make this thing happen. And I'm looking at you now as a four-time author, soon to be five-time author, which is crazy to me. Can you talk to the listeners about the four books you've written and what this latest project is going to be about? Visionistas, a collaborative book for women who think outside the box. What is that all about?
Absolutely. So my first book that I had published, it was Diary of an Entrepreneur's Wife. So it just kind of gives a behind the scenes look at entrepreneurship. So it's just really going through the process of working on myself, my mindset, having to view things differently because I was accustomed to not necessarily that having a 9 to 5 is anything bad. It's great. I mean, every job is needed, every job is warranted, but to really kind of step in the entrepreneurial space and not have any former like teaching guidance or anything on it. I had to really shift the focus, and even writing that first book, I I had a conviction, or I say the Holy Spirit convicted me because I didn't convict myself. But it was like, if you're going to tell other people how to write a book, you have to write a book. So
Mm.
that's where the first one came in, because I needed to go through the process. It's kind of like, you're telling people to work out. Well, how are you going to tell people to work out and you're not working out, you're not doing the stretches, you're not doing those things. So that was the biggest thing for me. And then after that, and this is actually even the third volume of Visionistas. So Visionistas was women who think outside the box. It was all things women empowerment. I just wanted to collaborate with other women, put them in a book to be able to share. Each individual author has, their own chapter. They have a way, to resource that. And so my book will literally be, it's been from the East Coast to the West Coast. So we have authors from all the way from Chile to Florida to California. They're all just, a part of that book. So it's just putting it out there, and just being able to share and encourage other women. So for those that don't have the time to do an entire book,
Hmm.
because time is one of the big components of writing a book. They can just share their chapter, and be able to put it in a book, and have that as a resource available for other, women to read it.
Oh,
So,
that's awesome.
yeah, the other one was a collaborative piece as well. It was Footprint of Success. So I've done several, but my biggest thing is, and what I'm working on even now, so total transparency, is I like to be behind the scenes. I like to be the one on the other end of the spectrum of asking the questions and talking and all that. So, really kind of putting myself out there, that I'm, just wanting to be the face of, as opposed to just sitting on the sidelines or in the background. But my ultimate passion, again, is helping other people write their stories.
Mm, mm. Well, you are helping others write their stories indeed. And I think it's great that you're going to be in front of the camera as opposed to being behind the camera for a change. And I agree with you. It's funny. I always mention to my patients that the stuff that you're doing, I've done. Like I've done the exercises you're doing right now, and they never believe me. Oh, you don't know what I feel. You don't know what's going on. Like, actually, I had surgery myself. I know exactly how I mean, not exactly, but I've been through it also. I kind of know what you feel like because I've also been through that process. So everything I teach people, yes, I have done those things, and that gives me a little more clout, a little more confidence to say that you have to do it as well because I know it's going to work. So yeah, you writing these books is part of the process, and I'm sure it was so eye-opening for you to go through that process for yourself, and you've helped so many other people as a result of that. So yeah, I completely agree with that. You need to go through the process for yourself before you sell anybody else what they're supposed to be doing.
Yes, absolutely. And I will say too, even how God, I believe in alignment and all the things, and what people experience and go through. It's like God in, especially even in this season, has put people in front of me
Mm,
that have been where I'm going.
mm,
So now I'm able to say, okay, God, like I see the other side of it. So
yeah.
it's like the Sarah and the Elizabeth, or not Sarah and Elizabeth, the Mary and Elizabeth journey, like, Elizabeth was pregnant, and then here comes Mary. So
Hmm.
he put her in front of a woman who was already going through it.
Hmm.
So I just look at that. So again, it excites me, just to be able to be a part of other people's journey and them be a part of mine.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing. So you and I are both coaches. I coach a track team, and I do that in my spare time, but you're also executive life coach, and you pour into others kind of the same way I pour into others as well. Talk to us about being a life coach, how that started, and what's that's like in terms of adding to your already very busy schedule.
Absolutely. And even with that, so what ended up even happening with that? So it started for a season, and then it transitioned to where it ultimately became the book coach component. So
Mm,
although I help people through, being able to write their stories, because it ultimately it I know that the life coaching and the therapy, they kind of run in tandem, somewhat the same without the credentials, and then of course the additional extensive training. So I don't want to discredit and say that they are the same, but they do kind of run in tandem. But I was able to take the experiences that I learned as an executive life coach and put it into the books. But then I will say, and I preface it and I let people know, especially depending on what kind of book they're going to write. I will say I have a list of resources for therapists if you need a therapist, because I am not a therapist. Like I
Hmm.
cannot help you. I don't do the somatic training. I don't do any of those things. Like if because when you're writing a book, it is going to reveal things about you that you didn't even know needed to be healed.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so I've been able to take that, and then there's been times where we've had to pause on projects because I'm like, okay, yeah, you're not healed. Like I can
Hmm.
see that you need to be healed in some areas before we continue this. Because what will end up happening is, they say, you can't take your work home with you.
Yes.
Well, because I work from home, it's with me.
Right.
So ultimately, I have to be very mindful and cautious because their stories can ultimately become my stories. Because when I'm helping people through the whole process, I'm reliving it with them. I'm
Mm.
going I'm going through it with them. If I have to put myself in a position to share your thoughts in a way that you would share it, I've got to have that lived experience with you as best as I can.
Yeah.
There's been times I'll wake up 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and an idea will come to me and I'll write it down. It's not my idea. It's not anything to do with my projects, but it stemmed from the projects that I'm working on with other people. So it kind of merged together. So typically any of the clients that I work with that need that life coaching component, it ends up becoming the book.
Gotcha. That's wild. I question for you. So when you have someone who may come to you and you see there's a trend for them to not be in the best space, right? They're coming to you and they have something they want to really go off the chest and they want to put it in the book form and you're seeing the content and you're like, this might not be the best thing to put out there. What are your responses to that? How do you sift through that? How do you decide, yeah, we're gonna definitely go through this and make it happen, and we're gonna, we'll see who likes it, or how do you respond to those things? What's your usual method of process?
So the biggest thing is I make sure that it comes from their perspective, whether they're talking about someone, because I don't want to put anybody in a position to face a lawsuit
Hmm.
or anything along those terms. Like you've when you're sharing your story, even if especially with people, I mean the stories that I can even just reflect back on now, just the trauma, the abuse, the neglect, all the
Mm.
things that these people faced. And that I had one where a woman was sitting in the middle of her floor and her husband came home and she's just crying and she's just weeping inconsolably, and he called and thanked me for helping her release things that she didn't know. And I won't say who the author is, but I will
Hmm.
say that she had found out that she told her mom, she said, I must be adopted, or because I don't look like any of my family members. She's a teenager. And her mom finally revealed to her that the man who had been raising her entire life was not her father. And in fact, she had another father that she had never met. And it
Mm.
was things that she had, these wounds that she had. Thank God she had a therapist, to be able to help walk her through it,
Yeah.
because I didn't know what that would look like. But it released things in her. It helped her heal. It helped her identify the areas that needed to be healed in.
Yeah.
Um, we had to paint the picture in a way that wasn't going to, because her mom was still living at the time of the publication. So we didn't want to make anything negative, with her mom or
Hmm.
any of those things. But ultimately, at the end of the day, your story is your story.
Yeah.
So I just really try to, I don't necessarily skirt around, hard topics, but I make it come from their perspective instead of saying, well, my mom did this to me. You come at it, this is how I felt.
Hmm.
And just being able to redirect the focus back to the author as opposed to the people or the characters in the author's story.
Yeah. Yeah. And that must be really challenging, but I agree with you. Just making sure that you can protect all parties involved. It has to be a challenge because everyone has a story. And, I think even in an ideal world, all the stories that I always think about, oh yeah, let's go out there and write a story about being more and about being friendly and about, all these things. But there are the opposite spectrums, right? Where people are like, yeah, you need to know about what's going on in my life and how I struggle with this and how this is so happening to me. So, although those stories do coexist, and it must be challenging for you as an editor to kind of sift through those things and see what you want to share and how you want to share it. And at the same time, counseling and guiding those who are going through the process. I mean, the term writer's therapy is a real thing. I expressed some um therapy being gained in the process as well, as I was sifting through my edits with you and trying to go over things that happened in my life, my story, my background, etc., which for the most part has been, fine. But I'm sure for others going through their journeys and sharing their stories, it may bring um fear, it may bring sadness, it may bring tears in the editing process, which is very cathartic in some regards, but also somewhat challenging if you're trying to finish a project. So I'm sure all of those things, someone's studying these metrics, I'm sure, and how to handle the writing process. But it is interesting all these things come into fruition when you're talking about putting out a project like a book and how powerful that project can be, once it's finished. So I think you're able to touch so many lives, Stephanie, and it's really amazing how you're able to do it.
Thank you so much. And
Yeah,
likewise, and I know that that's why, God brought us together at the time that he did to be able to continue to make an impact. So I'm eternally grateful.
yeah. Stephanie, what would you give advice wise to anyone who, again, is interested in writing a book? They don't know where to start. They may have some thoughts on paper, but they don't really know what to do with those things, or they're just too afraid to even think about writing a book, and they're like, you know what, this is not even for me. Let's just haunt past that. What should they be doing in terms of if they want to work with you? How can they go about doing that?
Absolutely. So the biggest thing, of course, is going back to knowing the purpose, knowing what you want to utilize the book for. And then again, sometimes those things are revealed as you go through the process because some people are just wanting to write a book because it's just been placed on their heart to write a book. The biggest thing again is creating what the book is going to be about as it relates to an outline, and then being able to unpack that outline. I always tell people, always tell people that who want to do like an autobiography or a memoir or anything along those terms to really kind of begin from, start from the beginning and then just create like dates or years of their life to do a timeline of what they experienced and when they experienced it, because then they'll be able to go back and that be a point of reference for the different things that happened in their lives. And then with each individual story that's connected to their timeline, whether it be, when their child was born, or, when if a parent passed away, you're able to kind of backtrack and unpack those things, but you've got to start somewhere. And even if the idea of a blank screen is too intimidating, AI has infiltrated, publishing,
Mhm.
which is perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine if used the right way. But you can always utilize that. Or I always suggest, just people like, even for me, this is what I do, even for my process, is I use my notes section in my phone, or I use the transcription piece of, or the audio recordings, to where I'm sharing those stories to where I may not have the time to sit down for an hour and a half to write down my story, depending on how quickly it comes to me. But I can go on there and record myself and share the story of like, oh, this just happened. Or I mean, I have endless stories of when my children did this or when they did that, and I keep track of it and I put it in a folder on the Google Drive, so that when I'm ready to, when God instructs me and leads me to write this book or do these different things, I'm collecting data as I go. So even if somebody isn't ready to completely start, that's perfectly okay, but you can be positioned to start. You can at
Mm,
least prepare yourself so that when you're ready to do it, you've at least collected all this information, and you're not getting in front of someone or getting needing to get help, and you're overwhelmed because you're given so much information in a short amount of time.
yeah, yeah. You mentioned ghostwriting. How does ghostwriting work for those who are also looking into that?
So ghostwriting is ultimately that's where the whole writer's therapy component comes in. Now, like my consultations, they're the consultations, to where we're able to, digest and go through editing. So just total transparency, you've done writer's therapy, but not to the degree or capacity that I would like to do it. So there will be a time when we write book number three,
Oh
because
boy.
I'm speaking it now where we're able to really, really unpack and digest. So it's somewhat even the layout of the podcast component, but you would be in the hot seat and I get to tell you to unpack this for me, tell me what you were experiencing in that moment and really be more descriptive. So that ultimately is the whole process. Writer's therapy leads to the ghostwriting. Now, of course, I can take it in and give it to the author. It really just depends because every author is different. So some authors, they want to be like you were one that wanted to be more hands-on with the editing and all of the things. And then I have some that are like, no, I don't want any part of it. I want to see it when it's done. And I may tweak it, 5%, be 95% you, 5% me, or, vice versa, whatever that looks like, because, and I tailor it for each individual.
Mm,
So that's ultimately the process.
gotcha. Okay. Well, we will see, Steph. Let me let me get past Project More first. Hold on. I think I write a
Yes,
book every 5 years. So yeah, I got a 5 year window to figure out this next
yes,
step. This next step.
absolutely. Yes.
Listen, last question for you. I know that you have a lot of similarities in terms of our passion for helping others. And I think I always bring people on the show who do serve the community in various ways. I know you do a lot when it comes to being on the board of directors for this group, Expectant Heart Pregnancy Resource Center. Talk to us a little bit about what you do with them exactly and why it's so important to you.
Absolutely. So that was actually one of my best friends created that organization, and it was tailored for women who didn't have the resources that they needed when they were pregnant. She was
Mm,
and she is my angel, and I will always say that she is my angel. So I hold her near and dear to my heart, where she had this mission and passion for helping women who were either teen moms or really helping with the no, no, it's politically incorrect or however you want to say it. Just if they chose not to have an abortion, what it would look like on the other side of it for someone to be there to hold their hand.
mm,
So she collaborated with several different organizations. They are able to equip and teach, whether it be young moms or struggling moms or just single moms or whatever that is. I mean, they even help families as well, but to just navigate life. So where your life doesn't have to end when you create life, but it begins again. To be able to help them with all things, like they're able to go to different classes and courses to be able to really hone in on life skills because she knew that that was something that she was missing when she was younger.
mm,
So she's been able to take that and then just make something absolutely amazing out of it to just be able to give back to the community.
I
And
love it.
I love being a part of it.
Yeah, no, I love that stuff. I think it's great. I think everyone should be a part of something as impactful as that. And I knew you were involved in many, many things, but adding that to your list of things is just making it even more impressive with all you do. So thank you for sharing that stuff. And for those who are
Absolutely.
listening, if they want to contact you, reach out to you, start the editing process or the book writing process, how can they do that? How should they contact you?
Okay, so that I could definitely be on Facebook. That is, and my children tell me that's the old, I guess that's the MySpace of the new generation. It's like, what? I love Facebook is just so Facebook is like my point of reference for sure. And that's Stephanie Palmer. And then of course Instagram. I'm starting over all of my things were deleted. Like I have no idea. I couldn't even get into my old account. So I'm
Mm,
starting over from fresh new. So it's Stephanie_A_Palmer. So those are the two ways. And then, of course, I have the Zeal Editors at gmail.com is definitely a way to be able to just reach out to get connected.
awesome. Awesome. Any final thoughts you want to share, Steph, about how you're being more this year or how you've enjoyed the book project more for this year or how you want to be more alive in 2025?
So, yes, I will say again, like I had mentioned earlier, just this project has really, really helped me really assess where I was because sometimes if you don't even know you want more if you don't know where you are. So, really seeing where you are and what you want out of life is going to create the more. So, for anyone who is on the fence about, whether it be their health or whether it be, going to college or whether it be writing a book or whatever it is, see what that more looks like for you and go for it.
Mm, yeah. Couldn't have said it better myself. 70 Pound, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate you. I really respect you and love you so much. And I'm thankful that we have now written two books together. It makes me actually very, very happy to say I'm a two-time author. And I wish you and hope for you and pray for you the best with your latest collaboration. I hope it goes well. I know it will go well because it's what you do. And just keep doing the great stuff you're doing. You are a rock star, and I really appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate you as well.
No problem. And folks, she said so many poignant things today. I mean, a rock star amongst rock stars. She is a pillar. And for those of you who are on the fence about, can I write a book? It's going to be too daunting. Where can I find the time? I'm telling you, if I can write a book with 1,000 things that I'm doing every single day, you can write a book. You all have a story. You all have a legacy. You all have something that you can put out there for others to know about your journey in this life. And this life is challenging. You can learn from, and we can learn from each other in this process. So definitely reach out to her. I'll put the information in the show notes as well. And our quote for today, again, start writing. No matter what, the water does not flow until the faucet is turned on. Turn on the faucet, folks. Go out there and write, even if it's in your phone, in your notes, or transcribing things on a recorder. Put those things down, put them down on paper. And I guarantee you, you will see that you can also be an author. You can also share your story with the world. So folks, have a great week. Have a great month. Continue to go out there and be amazing. And let's continue to be all more alive as we strive in 2025. We'll see you next time. Peace.